Hello world, Augustin Cortez, known as tit.eth on the web. It's coming live from Web3. So to document today's learning, I essentially want to recap. It was more technical based. I really focused in on learning specifications of smart contracts. For example, I did a big overview on what it takes to make a smart contract, or say an NFT on chain, which means that the metadata is on the chain itself and the image itself is on chain. That was a really interesting experience to be aware of because instead of using IPFS, you encode the image into an SVG. I should say you make the image an SVG, which is just a mathematical process to create images. And then from there, that code of the SVG gets encoded into a string, and then that string gets sent out to the chain metaverse, right? So that was really interesting, being aware of how the metadata on chain makes it as decentralized as it could be, or most protected, right? But in my opinion, seems that it could be overkill in the sense that the solutions that are out there to make the metadata off chain are great. Let me elaborate on why it should be, or the benefits of keeping it on chain versus off chain. Basically, the biggest benefit is security, in the sense that as long as the chain is going to be alive, the NFT will be there. And of course, that's the merit, the beauty of it. However, from a builder standpoint, creating and adding more data onto the chain is very, very expensive. I think the amount to add 1 gigabyte is like over, I don't even want to say the number, but you can look that up, how much it costs to upload 1 gigabyte onto the Ethereum chain. The price is insane. So when you add the metadata and the image encodement on chain, you're adding a lot more data as if you were to upload it to another format, which is IPFS, and the Airweave, I believe is the name, Arweaver. Sorry, the name hasn't been tied to it yet, but the benefit of those solutions is that they're essentially decentralized too. Essentially decentralized. IPFS, there's no central owner. It's a protocol. It's based off nodes. As it grows, the more of a network effect it obtains. And that itself is decentralization. It's not on the chain, but it's still decentralization. So my philosophy, and keep in mind, my philosophy is very tender in the space, but it's if you have two decentralized solutions, which is what you're aiming for, then you should take a look on keeping the best of both worlds. Of course, like objectively, the safest and most beneficial for the NFT is to keep it on chain. That way you're not relying on any other provider that's not the chain. And that does introduce possibility of risk, but in the sense is if the chain can go down itself, then there's a possibility that the IPFS or the other providers can go down themselves too. So the narrative of things falling down is true, but it goes to the chain itself as well. So no one's safe. And if you want to save money, then you go down the route of pushing your metadata off chain. I learned about the code. I learned about some processes on how to randomize the NFT, updating it, some functions. I read some documentation. I learned about encodement with base64, which is converting a string into, I think it's binary or some form of encodement that makes the information better. I learned about the NFT space on, essentially it is hype. There's a really good thread on the opposing side of NFTs, and I enjoyed it in the sense that it's coming from more like the right click narrative where you're purchasing an NFT is a gamble. It's worth absolutely nothing. That's the narrative of these people. And I could see the perspective. They compared it to you're buying a star, or there's a thing where people were buying stars and say, okay, you're going to be the owner of this star, and say NFT is the exact same thing. But that person, I think, is deriving the narrative more on buying JPEGs with no benefit. Like you're just buying a JPEG for the sake of it being a smart contract transaction. However, NFTs are much more in depth than just buying a JPEG. It's utilization, whether it's tickets, accessibility, even though that is speculative value. I mean, what's the difference between a ticket itself, right? It's a transaction that the tangible world is doing. So an NFT doing that, okay. But then also NFTs allow for contract transparency. It's the form that the transaction is operating at an open ledger. It's never been seen before. And the fact that this decentralized protocol can be open and NFT transactions and non-fungible token objects can be tied to ownership, it's a fascinating thing. From my experience, I noticed that a lot of the Web2 folks that have been opposing the Web3 narrative, I personally believe they have sunk cost fallacy, which means that they built their entire identity, the entire career around Web2, and then they're seeing something new and they essentially view it as a threat, and they're saying, no, not because of XYZ. It's kind of narrative that I've been seeing. But regardless, I think Web3 is here to stay. I don't think it's going to slow down anytime. I think the bear market is just the rising. So there's that. And then throughout the day as well, I was just reading more smart contracts. I have a database where a developer graded the smart contracts out there and gave it a grade, and just reading through it, going through Solidity documentation as well. So it's definitely more of a, nitty gritty learning, executing, building around that aspect. On the other side, it was really exciting for Learnio. We have a really nice logo and design. This thing is new. It's new money. It's sound money. It's the future. When you see it, it's a symbol of essentially what we're doing, and to encapsulate a message into a symbol, it's very difficult to do, especially what we're trying to do. It's not something that's simple. It's not just like it could be a smiley face that we're trying to project happiness. No, this is education. This is on-chain competency. This is protocols. This is very in-depth for education, and the fact that we're building here can be essentially captured through an image, through a logo, through a symbol. That is really, really exciting. And I also start connecting with more developers. Someone posted they needed a job, and someone tagged me and say, hey, do you know any devs? And with the Learnio community, I shot several people over. So the network is expanding, things are rising, and things are moving forward. But yeah, I think I'm gonna conclude it here. I'm gonna do further videos. Oh, another big part I worked on is I wrote a in-depth process of NFTs, from how the blockchain works to the philosophy of NFT ownership, to the sociology, to like the ledger operations in the finance sector. So it was a really diligent piece. I haven't finished it, but that was a big area too that I dedicated a good amount. All right, so it's pretty late. I'm really tired. My tone is a little slower than usual. Also had a good phrase today. It's called the Web3 punch. You just can get hit with the exhaustion. But I'm gonna conclude here. I'm gonna do a video on getting set up for the process to purchase your first NFT and get that ready for the community, because I know there's a lot of newcomers and people all over the space. So Gonna cut it here. Got some more work to do, but I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in.